Hey guys, it's Mo. So I'm back, and this is the end result of the room temperature method this go around. So as you can see, there's a little bit of what we call soda ash on the top here, this whitening of the bar on the top. As you can see, the surface is not smooth, it's hard, and as you can see, it's not, evenly shaped here, this single bar that I had in a separate mold. Now, I just want to talk about this for a little bit because the room temperature method can achieve a great looking bar of soap. This is just not an example of that. And I just wanted to do this video to show you guys how the batch came out, to talk about the pros and cons of the room temperature method. Now, the pros of the room temperature method is that it is an easier, much faster way of making soap. You don't have to worry about testing things. You don't have to worry about heating up anything. All you have to do is measure your ingredients. The only thing you're doing is mixing your lye water, letting that sit for a little while until it's completely clear, and then you're ready to go, as you've seen in the previous sections of this video, and you're ready to go through your steps and then start blending everything together and getting ready for your mold. The only problem is that the con there is that you're not testing the temperature. So when you're mixing these things together, you don't know what the temperature is at the time. Now, the whole ideal process with a perfect room temperature method mix is that when you start with your lye water, which is completely cleared, and it's now at, like, let's say, you've had it sitting, and all the lye is now, the lye water mix is clear, so that means that it's not cloudy. It looks just like water. It's clear. Then you'll take that lye water, you'll add it to your hard oils and your butters and anything, the other hard ingredients that you are choosing to put in, and you'll mix it in. And in that step, what you're doing is you're cooling down the lye water by using, like, the heat from the lye water to melt the hard oils and the butter. Okay, so that would then be bringing down the temperature. And by bringing down the temperature, when you're ready to mix it with your oils, your liquid oils, then it should be closer in temperature. Now, that's the ideal, process of this method. However, that may not be the case sometimes. When I get my lye water to a clear mixture, sometimes that lye water is at 160 something degrees Fahrenheit for me. Sometimes it's at 150 something degrees Fahrenheit for me. So what I usually do is I wait for it to cool down to about 120, 110 in the cold process method, and then make sure my oils are within 10-degree range before I mix them together. And that makes sure that when I stick blend it and I get to my trace, that it will harden in the time that it's supposed to harden, which is usually 24 to 48 hours. With this method, as you can see, it's hardened now, but it took about, I would say, about a week and a half before it actually got hardened. I took this out after it's sitting in the mold for 2 days, and I had to scrape it out with the knife, and that's why it doesn't look even. And even when you look at the side, you see there's some discoloration here, which leads me to believe if I were to cut this open, the middle might not even be dry enough. So what does that mean? That means that temperature plays a big role in when you're making your soap from scratch. When you mix your lye water and your oils, they have to be within a certain range of temperature of each other for it to create that nice hardening once you put it in your mold. Because, and most of the time we shoot for that 120 degree Fahrenheit range, and the reason being because that's like the ideal temperature. That's why I recommend that. If it's too hot, then it may not harden properly. So if your mix is like real hot still, before you pour it in your mold, this can happen where it's really mushy, it's soft. I mean, I'm touching it, and this is actually like, I can actually press into this soap, and I shouldn't be able to do that. So it affects how it hardens. And chemistry 101, temperature is always going to affect, or the state that your elements are in are going to affect what it's going to be when it combines, the reaction, the chemical reaction when you combine the two elements. Or what, I'm just using two elements as an example. So in this case, it was too hot. I could tell you exactly why this failed. It was too hot. The mixture did not get to a good temperature for everything to mix and harden well. So as a result of it being too hot, it came out jelly, it's soft, and it just doesn't look pleasing to the eye. So this batch of soap is going to be reused for something else. It could be reused for laundry. It could be reused for liquid soap, if you want to just use it as a liquid soap. Melt this down in some water, and there's other purposes that you could use this for, so that we're not wasting materials. So that's probably what I'm going to do with this. But I did want to show you that this was not a success. And I know that a lot of times people want to just show you the successful videos, but I want to show you the real outcomes of what can happen with the room temperature method. And in this case, I can tell the batch was too hot, and this is why it came out jelly and did not harden well. So to discuss the pros and cons real quick. So the pro is that it's an easier method. You don't have to worry about checking temperatures and all of that, so it's easier to get, and quicker to get your mix going and get it into your soap mold. The con is if the temperatures are not right, it's a hit or miss. You can either get it right or you can get it wrong. So with the room temperature method, I would just say be precautious. Be precautious about, really room temperature method. I really feel should be that we really need to get that lye water a little cooler before we even start putting our hard oils or butters in. Like, we really need to give that maybe about a good 10 to 15, maybe even 20 minutes to cool down, and bring it more down to closer to the room temperature. So by the time that you're starting to mix your add it to your hard oils or butters, it will be still hot. It will still be hot enough to melt it, but not that hot that by the time it's done melting it, it's still too hot to add to your room temperature liquid oils. So that would be a recommendation right there. Two, I would recommend that if you do put it into the mold, you put it into the mold and let it sit for about a week. Do not take it out within the normal 24 to 48 hours, because it's probably going to be still gelled-like. And also, if it's gelled-like when you're trying to take it out your mold, that means you should let it sit for a little bit more. So I would say patience is another thing that you would need to have with the room temperature method. You would need to exercise patience and let it sit in that mold much longer than you would in the normal, regular cold process method. So that's my take. I just want to let you guys know that room temperature method can work beautifully. And when all conditions are met, when the right conditions are there, you can have a very successful batch. What I will say was, with the room temperature method, I am not comfortable with my personal success rate with the room temperature method. It's always been hit or miss for me. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. And I feel that when you're investing your time, money, materials into making soap, you want to ensure that your batch is going to come out good every time. You don't want to say, I hope, fingers crossed, it's going to come out good. You want to know that it's going to come out good. So that's just my take on the room temperature method. It's a hit or miss. That's been my experience. I hope that you don't have those same results, but I do want you to be aware that it can happen. And with all things, trial and error, when you're making soap, trial and error is always going to be the case. So you know, you don't have to feel any kind of way if you don't have a successful batch come out of the room temperature method. Know that it is possible that if the batch is too hot when you put it in the mold, or when you start mixing everything together to get to your trace, that it can come out like this. So I just want everyone to be aware of that. Don't feel like, you know, especially if it's your first time, like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing, this is such a failure, I'm never making soap again. Don't have that approach. With the room temperature method, sometimes it's just hit or miss. And that's just, like I said, my personal experience. I can't speak for anyone else, but I will tell you what I've experienced with this method. And this is exactly why I've said in previous videos that temperature is important when making soap, and that I prefer to use the cold process method until, I mean, to this date, it's still my favorite method of making soap. So with that being said, I hope this video was informative. I hope you guys got to learn some things, and I hope that you take all, you know, whatever I've given you here and just, you know, improve it if you do choose to continue working with the room temperature method. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at naturealmuma@gmail.com, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.